I opened a service door for a motorcyclist trapped in the rain, not knowing his silver power bike was streaming our location to rival Mafia families hunting him across state lines. Now the airport's locked down, armed men are searching the terminals, and Werner Butler, the heir everyone thought was accepting an arranged marriage, is hiding in my dish room with a gun under his jacket and eyes that catalog exits like a soldier. The headlight flashing twice outside wasn't a malfunction, it was a countdown, and I just made myself a target by choosing the wrong stranger to save. Thank you for sticking around with me, my wonderful story family. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. The rain needles the skylights of the private terminal, syncing with the stutter of my old espresso machine. I count tills because numbers don't argue, don't ask questions, don't bruise. The floor gleams all expensive reflections and vacuum lines, and my burgundy blouse itches between my shoulder blades where the tag always finds me, a small, persistent discomfort I can't quite escape. Order up, Shirley. Jerry's voice barely registers over the hiss of steam and the low drone of the weather report on the mounted screen. I tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, my fingertips brushing the fatigue that lives in my temples these days. 6 years of night shifts. 6 years of keeping the Departures Cafe pristine for people who never look twice at the woman pouring their coffee. Coming, I call, forcing warmth into my voice that I don't feel. The terminal is nearly empty, just a nervous executive pacing near Gate 3. And an elderly couple sharing quiet conversation by the window where a white jet sleeps on the rain-slick tarmac. The storm has kept most travelers away, and if things stay this quiet, Jerry might send me home early. The thought makes my chest tighten. Early dismissal means fewer tips, and fewer tips means another week until I can afford the culinary program in Portland. Another week trapped in this polished glass cage, watching other people fly toward their lives while mine idles on the ground. Then a headlamp slices through the mist. I freeze mid-wipe, industrial cleaner stinging my nostrils. A silver power bike ghosts beneath the awning outside, sleek and dangerous as a bullet. The rider lifts his visor, and even through 10 meters of rain-streaked glass, I feel the weight of his gaze. Dark eyes that catalog exits before they ever find me. A yellow jacket beaded with water, bright as a warning flare. Something primitive in my brain whispers danger even as my traitorous heart kicks into a faster rhythm. He leans toward the intercom. Cold out here. The voice is low, European at the edges, the kind of accent that's been smoothed by years but never fully erased. Policy says no admittance during security alerts. The manual I memorized says wait for clearance. My job, the one I can't afford to lose, says call it in. Instead, I swipe my badge and crack the service door. Move, I say, jerking my chin toward the interior. He moves. Up close, he's younger than I expected, early 30s maybe, and he smells like rain and expensive leather and something darker I can't name. He doesn't crowd, doesn't speak, just watches mirrors and reflections with the focus of a man who's spent his life measuring distances to exits. Werner, he offers after a moment, and the single name lands between us like both answer and apology. Shirley, I reply, already regretting that I didn't let procedure save me from myself. When the breaker beside the espresso machine spits sparks, he finds a butter knife and a bar towel and fixes it with steady hands that know their way around things that might kill you. No questions asked. No fuss. Just competence as quiet as breathing. Thank you, I murmur. A ghost of a smile touches his mouth, transforming his face from merely handsome to something that could rewrite the neural pathways in a woman's brain. Observant, he says, and I realize he's noticed me noticing the scuffing on his jacket cuffs, the way he angles his body to keep the loading bay in his peripheral vision. Then the PA system screams to life. Attention, security alert. All personnel initiate lockdown protocol. Repeat, lockdown in effect. Shelter in place. The emergency shutters descend with a mechanical growl, sealing the terminal's main entrance. Red lights strobe across polished stone. Outside, through the narrowing gap, the silver power bike sits abandoned beneath the awning like evidence of something I shouldn't have done. Werner's hand doesn't move toward the weapon I suddenly realize must be under that yellow jacket. He just looks at me, calm as glass, waiting to see what I'll do next. This way, I hear myself say, already breaking another rule. I guide him past the espresso machine, through the swinging door marked staff only, into the dish room where steam clouds the air and the smell of citrus cleaner battles the metallic tang of filtered water. I pour contraband coffee into a chipped mug and press it into his hands. Don't let Jerry see you, I warn. Understood. A sudden crack of thunder rattles the skylights, and in the half-second the lights flicker, I catch the glint of something dark beneath his jacket. Not imagination, not paranoia. Metal. A weapon. Real. My pulse hammers in my throat. You okay? Werner asks, and I realize I've been staring. Fine. I lie. The word as automatic as breathing. Just jumpy from the storm. But the truth curls cold in my stomach. I've just smuggled a stranger, an armed stranger, into a locked terminal. A man who moves like violence held on a leash. A man who watches me with eyes that know exactly how fragile the distance between safety and catastrophe really is. Outside, beyond the sealed shutters and rain-slick glass, the power bike's headlight flickers twice. Once. Twice. Like a signal. And somewhere in the elegant geometry of the private terminal, this place of departures and clean goodbyes, I feel the night shift gears, tilting toward something I can't yet name. Something that might save me. Or something that might shatter every careful rule I've built my survival on. Shirley had a gift for reading rooms. Airports taught her that. If a pilot carried his cap instead of wearing it, the schedule was breaking. If a billionaire's assistant ordered 3 single-origin espressos and paid in cash, the jet was about to divert. She could look at a person and sort them into columns, harmless, hurried, or hazardous. The rider in the yellow jacket refused every column. The lockdown klaxon had just rolled through the private terminal when the bike slid under the awning. He lifted his visor and met her eyes through 10 meters of glass. It wasn't the handsome that arrested her, though he had enough of that to make a mess of any room. It was the stillness. Airports are kinetic. He was an arrow poised but unloosed. Cold out here, he said into the intercom. Voice roughened by weather and years of not needing to explain himself. Policy said no admittance. Instinct said he was a storm she could either let pass or invite inside. Shirley swiped her badge, cracked the service door, and jerked her chin. Move. He moved. Up close he smelled like rain and expensive leather. He didn't crowd. He watched mirrors. When the emergency lights flickered and a breaker spit sparks, he found a butter knife and a rag and kept her cafe from becoming a fire report. When 2 guards insisted on a sweep, Shirley lied with the ease of a woman who told the truth for a living. Just me, officer. Free pie for lockdown morale. The guards took the pie and left. Werner, he offered, as if the single name were both answer and apology. Shirley, she returned, as if she hadn't just risked her job for a stranger with battlefield eyes. The hours stretched. Rain braided the windows. A white jet slept across the ramp like a whale at the surface. They kept the espresso machine humming to drown the static of the radios. She learned he'd ridden to think. He learned she collected first sentences of novels and had a laugh she didn't use nearly enough. Then the loading bay hissed open. 3 men entered carrying coil cases and the wrong kind of focus. Werner's hand brushed Shirley's wrist, not a grab, a question, and then he became velocity. A tray crashed at the far wall. A body hit tiled floor. A wrist folded wrong around a weapon that should never have crossed that threshold. By the time Shirley's fear caught up, the dish room smelled of steel and citrus cleaner and the fight was over. You're not a tourist, she whispered. Not tonight, he said. And for one heartbeat she saw the crown he refused to wear. Werner Butler, the man other men invoked like an incantation. After that, the world narrowed to choices. He dropped the shutter. He told the truth neatly, as if he owed it to her to make it simple. His enemies had engineered the lockdown to choose the field. He had slipped his convoy because he needed a night where no one bowed. He could vanish now. Or she could walk with him to a safer door, and he would owe her more than thanks. Shirley thought about compromises, the kind poor people make with their fear, the kind rich men make with their souls. She thought about the steadiness with which he'd asked, "May I?" She nodded. They threaded staff corridors, twice ducking behind carts as shadows slid past intersections. Shirley's badge opened the last door to the service lot. Dawn pooled pale over the hangar when the rival's fixer tried to turn the exit into a scandal. He had a camera, a shouty script about criminal trespass, and a crowd's hunger for spectacle. Werner's men moved to intercept, but Shirley got there first. She stepped into the shot, named the fake evacuation code she'd heard on the guard's radio, and panned to the fixer's own lanyard where a maintenance badge hung on a dangling clip that didn't match. The feed died in his hands. The ambush collapsed like wet cardboard. You changed the game, Werner said afterward, voice low with a respect that felt like a hand under her ribs lifting her taller. The all-clear sounded, Lockdown over. Life supposedly resumed. Werner tried to leave clean. He returned Shirley's badge with both hands like something ceremonial. "If I stay, I bring weather," he said. "You deserve a small forecast." "Then bring yourself," Shirley answered. No lies, no entourage. She didn't recognize her own voice until she heard how steady it was. "If you come back as Werner." He nodded once, as if sealing a pact between equals, and the power bike arrowed into the pale. Weeks laundered that night into story. Security wrote it up as false alarm. The ramp supervisor who had texted the tip was reassigned to a warehouse no one could find on a map. And every Thursday, then Tuesdays too, Werner took the corner table by the window where the departures sign glowed like a small sun. He tipped well but not stupid. He asked for recommendations and then remembered them. He learned the rhythm of her life break counts, crew shift changes when her mother called. He never touched her hand when he passed the card reader back. He always asked before walking her to her car. Little by little, Shirley realized that the thing Werner had been searching for had never been anonymity. It was permission to be looked at and not calculated. To be a man who could fix a breaker and hold a door and admit he was tired. One wind-washed evening, with the jet outside blinking a patient beacon and the floors polished enough to copy their reflections, he told her the rest. The arranged alliance he no longer wanted. The wars that made boys into bosses before their bones finished growing. The houses that never felt like homes because no one there knew how he took his coffee. "And how do you take it?" she asked, smiling despite herself. "However you make it," he said, which sounded like an answer to a different question. By the time spring warmed the runway lights, the story everyone else believed was the one Shirley loved best. A woman at departures who opened a door during a lockdown and discovered not danger, but a future with terms she wrote herself. Werner still carried weather, but when he came through her door, he left the crown outside with the helmets and the noise. Inside, he was just a man in a yellow jacket who had finally arrived. The dish room hums with the white noise of industrial ventilation, a sound I've learned to find comforting over 6 years of night shifts. Werner stands with his back to the wall, coffee mug cradled in both hands, steam rising between us like a question I'm not ready to answer. "Your gloves are soaked," I say, nodding toward his hands. "You'll get frostbite if the power goes out." He glances down as if just noticing the water pooling at his feet. "I'll manage." "You will," I agree, "but not on my watch." I cross to the supply shelf and pull down a stack of catering towels, the thick, expensive kind Jerry orders for VIP service. "Here," and lose the jacket for a minute. "I'll hang it near the dryer vent." For a moment I think he'll refuse. His jaw tightens, and I catch the calculation flickering behind those dark eyes, weighing exposure against hypothermia, trust against tactical disadvantage. Then he shrugs out of the yellow jacket and I see it. A line of dark ink curling just above his collar, disappearing beneath the black shirt. Not a full tattoo, just the edge of something deliberate. Something that tells a story he hasn't offered yet. "Thank you," he says quietly, accepting the towels. I hang the jacket near the vent, careful not to let my fingers brush the inner pockets where I'm certain that metallic glint wasn't my imagination. When I turn back, Werner is watching me with an expression I can't quite parse, something between amusement and respect. "You're good at this," he observes. "At what?" "Taking care of people who don't ask for it." The words land softer than they should, and I busy myself wiping down a counter that's already spotless. "It's the job." "No," he says. "It's not." Before I can respond, voices echo from the main cafe. I press a finger to my lips and crack the dishroom door. 2 security guards, Kevin and Marcus, both nearing retirement and treating this lockdown like an inconvenient detour between shifts, are making their mandatory sweep. Kevin's flashlight beam cuts lazy arcs across empty tables. "Protocol says we check the back," Marcus grumbles. "Protocol says a lot of things." Kevin yawns. "You smell that? Fresh coffee. Shirley's probably back there organizing spoons or whatever she does." I step through the door before they can decide to investigate further, pulling it shut behind me with practiced casualness. "Evening, gentlemen. Rough night for a lockdown drill." "Not a drill," Kevin corrects. "Security picked up a credible threat. We're supposed to sweep all service areas." My pulse kicks, but I keep my expression neutral. "Well, you're welcome to search." Or, I pause, letting the word hang. I just pulled a fresh berry pie from the warmer. Jerry's experimental recipe. Someone should quality test it before he puts it on the menu tomorrow. Marcus's eyes light up like a kid's on Christmas morning. "Berry pie?" "With the lattice crust," I confirm. Still warm. I'll box you each a slice if you promise to tell him it needs more sugar. He never listens to me. Kevin looks torn between duty and dessert. Duty loses. I suppose we can circle back after we finish the upper terminals. Good call. I'm already moving toward the counter, pulling down containers with efficient grace. You know, this lockdown's probably just another false alarm. Remember last year when someone's laptop battery overheated and they evacuated Terminal C? 3 hours for a Dell battery? Marcus laughs, accepting his container. Ridiculous. Exactly. You two stay safe out there. I watch them retreat toward the security corridor, pie in hand, before allowing myself a full breath. When I slip back into the dish room, Werner is standing exactly where I left him, but his posture has shifted looser, impressed. That was tactical, he says. That was pie. I cross to the coffee pot and refill his mug, then pour one for myself. But yes, I've learned that most problems can be solved with carbs and a calm voice. Most problems, he echoes. Not all. Not all, I admit. The PA system crackles overhead. Update. Lockdown remains in effect. All personnel maintain current positions. We appreciate your patience. Jerry's voice filters through from his office, muffled but agitated. I catch fragments. How long and insurance won't cover. I should check on the stranded passengers, I say, more to myself than Werner. Make sure they have water blankets. The elderly couple by the window looked anxious. I'll come with you. I start to protest, then reconsider. 2 people moving through a locked terminal looks more like staff assistants than one woman repeatedly leaving her post. Stay behind me. If anyone asks, you're a contract maintenance tech helping with the generator backup. Contract maintenance, Werner repeats, something almost playful in his tone. Creative. Survival skill number 3. Plausible lies delivered with absolute confidence. What are numbers 1 and 2? I pause at the door, meeting his eyes. Read the room before you enter it, and never trust a man who doesn't ask before touching you. His expression shifts serious now, understanding. Smart rules. We move through the staff corridor in tandem, Werner's footsteps silent despite his boots, his presence somehow both unobtrusive and impossible to ignore. The emergency lighting casts everything in shades of amber and shadow, transforming familiar spaces into something liminal. The elderly couple, Mr. and Mrs. Chen, regulars on the Hong Kong route, are huddled near the window, their carry-ons pulled close like protective barriers. Surely, Mrs. Chen says with visible relief. Do you know what's happening? They won't tell us anything. Just a security precaution, I assure her, kneeling beside their seats so I'm at eye level. Nothing to worry about. Can I get you both some tea, maybe a blanket? We're fine, dear, Mr. Chen says, but his hands shake slightly as he adjusts his glasses. Werner moves past me without a word, scanning the area near their seats. He pauses by an electrical panel, opens it with the ease of someone who knows his way around infrastructure, and does something I can't quite see. The panel beeps once, and the emergency lighting in this section brightens perceptibly. Mrs. Chen gasps softly. Oh, that's much better. Tripped breaker, Werner says simply, closing the panel. He offers Mr. Chen a nod of acknowledgement, something in the gesture suggesting military precision, old-world courtesy. Thank you, young man, Mr. Chen says. We continue the circuit checking on the nervous executive, who's on his 4th espresso and radiating anxiety, resetting an alarm that's chirping near the restrooms, redistributing blankets from the first-class lounge. Werner helps without prompting, without claiming credit. He simply sees what needs doing and does it. I catch myself watching him when I should be working, the way he moves through space like water finding its level, the careful distance he maintains from everyone except when offering direct assistance. That tattoo keeps drawing my eye, a mystery written in ink. You're staring, he says quietly as we pause in a service alcove between terminals. You're interesting, I counter. Most tourists don't know how to reset commercial alarm systems. Most cafe managers don't smuggle armed strangers past security. The word armed hangs between us, an acknowledgement of what we've both been pretending not to discuss. Are you going to hurt anyone here? I ask directly. No. Are you in danger? His pause lasts a beat too long. Potentially. From? People who make poor decisions about other people's business. It's not an answer, but it's honest in its evasion. I nod slowly. Okay. Okay? He sounds genuinely surprised. I'm choosing to trust my instincts. They're usually right about people. I glance toward the cafe. Stay close. And if shooting starts, hit the floor and let me handle the talking. That almost smile touches his mouth again. You think you can talk down an active threat? I once talked a drunk CEO out of stealing a catering van because he forgot where he parked his Bentley. Never underestimate the power of a calm voice and strategic redirection. This time he does smile, brief but genuine. Noted. We're heading back toward the cafe when I spot Caleb through the terminal window. He's supposed to be managing the ramp crew, but instead he's circling Werner's bike with his phone out, photographing it from multiple angles. My stomach drops. Caleb and I have history, the awkward kind born from his persistent requests for dates I've consistently declined with increasing directness. Last month, I finally told him I wasn't interested, and he'd responded with the kind of wounded anger that makes men dangerous. Problem? Werner asks, following my gaze. Maybe. I watch as Caleb types something on his phone, his face illuminated by the screen's glow. That's Caleb, ramp supervisor. He's persistent. Persistent how? The kind where no sounds like try harder in his head. Werner's expression goes flat, that dangerous stillness I saw earlier returning. Has he hurt you? No, just makes things uncomfortable. I bite my lip, watching Caleb pocket his phone and stride toward the employee entrance. But he's not supposed to be documenting vehicles without authorization, and he definitely shouldn't be texting during a lockdown. Who would he text? It's a good question. Caleb has friends on the security team, maybe airport police. But something about the furtive way he glanced around before typing makes my skin prickle. Before I can answer, the loading bay indicator light flashes green. We both freeze. That entrance is supposed to be sealed during lockdown, accessible only with level 4 clearance and dual authentication. I have level 2, Jerry has level 3. Surely. Werner's voice drops to barely above a whisper. Get behind me. What? The service door to the dish corridor hisses open. 3 men enter wearing maintenance vests and hard hats, carrying tool cases that hang wrong, too heavy, wrong distribution. They move with synchronized precision, splitting formation like they've rehearsed this. These aren't maintenance workers. And from the way Werner's hand disappears beneath his borrowed towel, he knows it too. The lead man's radio crackles. Target confirmed. Bike cam shows movement in the west service corridor. Werner's fingers close around my wrist, not grabbing, asking. I don't hesitate. I nod. And we run. We don't make it far. The dish room is the only option 20 feet ahead, door already propped open from our earlier refuge. Werner pulls me through it with surprising gentleness given the velocity of our retreat, his hand steady at the small of my back, guiding rather than shoving. Inside, the space feels smaller than it did an hour ago. Steel prep tables gleam dully in the emergency lighting. Industrial sinks line one wall. A commercial dishwasher hunkers in the corner like a sleeping animal. The air still smells of citrus cleaner and steam. Lights, Werner says, his voice barely audible. I don't question it. My hand finds the switch panel by muscle memory, and I kill every circuit, overhead fluorescents, under cabinet LEDs, even the exit sign above the rear door. Darkness floods in like water. Absolute except for the thin seam of amber glow bleeding under the corridor door. Werner moves in that darkness like he was born to it. His hand finds my elbow, and he guides me behind the largest prep table, stainless steel, bolted to the floor, substantial enough to stop anything short of a bullet. Which, given the weight of those tool cases, might be optimistic thinking. Stay down, he whispers against my ear, his breath warm. No matter what you hear, understand? My heart hammers so hard I'm certain he can feel it. Yes. Good. There's approval in the single word. And something else, a kind of grim pride that I'm not screaming or freezing. On 3, cover your ears. I press my palms against my ears just as the corridor door opens. Flashlight beams slice through the darkness, 3 distinct cones of light sweeping methodically across the space. The men enter in formation, professional, practiced, not airport security, not maintenance, something else entirely. Clear left, one of them murmurs. Checking right, another responds. I risk a glance around the edge of the prep table. Werner has vanished, simply ceased to exist in any space the flashlights can find. For one terrifying moment, I think he's abandoned me, left me here to face whatever these men want. Then I see the shadow move. Werner is pressed flat against the wall beside the industrial shelving unit, invisible in the negative space between light beams. In his hand, a plastic tub bristling with commercial cutlery, the heavy kind restaurant-grade steel that could double as weapons in the right hands. Or the wrong ones. The lead man advances past the dishwasher, his flashlight tracking across steel surfaces. Thermal shows 2 bodies. They're here. 2 bodies. They have thermal imaging, which means they came prepared, which means this wasn't opportunistic, this was planned. The motorcycle, the lockdown, the loading bay access. This was a trap, and I walked Werner straight into it. Werner's hand rises slowly, deliberately. He mouths something I can't quite see in the darkness. 1, 2, 3. The cutlery tub explodes against the far wall with the sound of a car crash, metal shrieking against tile, forks and knives and spoons, detonating into a shrapnel cloud of noise that fills every cubic foot of space. The 3 men spin toward the sound, flashlights converging on the impact point, and Werner becomes violence. Later, I'll try to describe what I witnessed. I'll fail. He moves like water finding cracks. No wasted motion, no flourish. Nothing that resembles the choreographed fights in movies. This is something older, something honed by necessity into pure efficiency. The first man goes down before his flashlight even completes its arc. Werner simply appears beside him. I don't see the transition, just the result. The man's radio clattering to tile, his body folding, his weapon. Yes, definitely a weapon, skidding harmlessly toward the dishwasher. The second man tries to pivot, bringing his own weapon to bear. Werner is already inside his guard. An elbow strike, a swept leg, the wet crack of a knee bending wrong. The man's scream cuts off as Werner's hand finds his throat, not crushing, just applying precise pressure until consciousness flees. The third man is smarter. He doesn't try to fight, he runs. Werner lets him take 3 steps before an industrial mixing bowl, 5 pounds of stainless steel, spins through the darkness like a discus and catches the man between his shoulder blades. He goes down hard, the impact driving air from his lungs in a sound like a punctured tire. And then it's over. The entire fight lasted maybe 15 seconds, possibly less. Time did something strange while I watched a man in a borrowed towel dismantle 3 armed intruders with the casual competence of someone alphabetizing spices. Werner is breathing harder now, the only indication he's human, as he efficiently zip-ties the men's wrists with industrial twist ties from the supply shelf. He moves between them like a technician conducting quality control, checking pulses, clearing weapons, ensuring they're secure but alive. Then he crosses to me. "You're okay?" His voice is steady, but I can see the adrenaline in the slight tremor of his hands, the hyper-focus in his eyes. I nod, not trusting my voice yet. He crouches beside me, and in the dim light bleeding from the corridor, I finally see him clearly. The man he's been hiding beneath the polite tourist routine. His knuckles are bleeding split skin over bone-white ridges. His shirt is torn at the shoulder, revealing more of that dark tattoo. And his eyes carry the weight of having done this before. Many times before. "Who are you?" The question comes out steadier than I expected. Werner glances at his split knuckles like he's just noticing them. "Someone who won't let them reach you." That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give right now. He sits back on his heels, wincing slightly. But it's true. I find myself reaching for his hand, the damaged one pulling it toward me with a steadiness I don't feel. "There's a first aid kit in the supply closet." "Shirley, don't." I'm already moving, muscle memory overriding shock. "You protected me. Let me return the favor." The first aid kit is exactly where it's been for 6 years, mounted beside the fire extinguisher. I grab it and return to find Werner still crouched by the prep table, watching the 3 unconscious men with the wariness of someone who knows they might not stay unconscious. "Give me your hand." He does. I clean the splits with antiseptic wipes, my fingers gentle against his damaged knuckles. This close, I can see the fine tremor in his shoulders, aftershock catching up to control. The tattoo on his neck resolves into something deliberate. A crowned wolf, partial, disappearing beneath his collar toward what I suspect is a much larger piece. "You've done this before," I say quietly. Not a question. "Yes?" "The fighting or the protecting?" "Both." He watches me work with an intensity that makes my hands want to shake. "You're very calm." "I'm terrified," I correct. "But panic doesn't help anyone, and your knuckles need bandaging." Something shifts in his expression, that ghost of a smile returning. "Survival skill number 4? Compartmentalize until the crisis passes. Fall apart later, privately, with ice cream." I finish wrapping his knuckles in gauze, taping the edges with perhaps more care than strictly necessary. "There. You'll live. Thanks to you." He flexes his hand, testing the wrap. The lights were smart, gave me the advantage. You're welcome. I sit back, finally allowing myself to feel the full weight of what just happened. Werner, those men came prepared. They had thermal imaging, coordinated entry. They weren't looking for random targets. No, he agrees quietly. They weren't. They were looking for you. He doesn't deny it. Before I can press further, sirens Doppler outside real ones, multiple units converging on the terminal. The PA system crackles to life. Security teams responding to Level 3 incident. All personnel maintain lockdown positions. Werner's head tilts, listening to something I can't hear. Then his expression darkens. A radio crackles from the corridor, not from the three unconscious men, but from somewhere beyond the dish room door. A fourth voice, calm and professional. Target confirmed. Bike cam shows movement in West Service corridor. Repeat. Visual confirmation via motorcycle camera feed. Subject is contained. The words land like ice water. Bike cam. Camera feed. I turn to Werner slowly, pieces clicking into horrible alignment. Your motorcycle has a camera. Yes. That's streaming. Yes. To them? I gesture at the three men. No. Werner stands, his posture shifting into something military alert. To my people. But if they've tapped the feed... He doesn't finish the thought. He doesn't need to. The silver power bike outside the one Caleb photographed, the one sitting beneath the awning like an invitation, isn't just transportation. It's a beacon. A tracking device broadcasting Werner's exact location to anyone with the right access. Which means whoever sent these three men knows exactly where we are, knows the terminal layout, knows we're trapped in a locked facility with limited exits and a security team that might not know who the real threat is. Werner's hand finds mine steady despite everything. I need you to trust me for the next 10 minutes. Can you do that? I look at the three unconscious men, at Werner's bandaged knuckles, at the yellow jacket still hanging near the dryer vent, innocent and bright and dangerous. What happens in 10 minutes? Either my people get here first, he says, his voice carrying the calm of someone whose calculated odds most people never consider, or theirs do. Outside, another siren joins the chorus. The radio crackles again. All units loading bay. Subject is priority retrieval. Non-lethal force authorized. Werner's grip tightens fractionally. Shirley, the shutters, can you control them from here? No, Jerry's office has the override, but... I stop, thinking. The breaker panel you fixed earlier. It controls the emergency lighting and the motorized shutters for this section. Show me. We move back into the corridor, stepping over debris. Werner's body positioned between me and every shadow. The breaker panel is exactly where he left it, door still hanging open. If I kill the breakers, I say, this entire wing goes dark. The shutters default to closed, but Jerry will notice immediately. How long until he overrides? 3 minutes. Maybe 4 if he has to find his master key. Werner studies the panel, calculating. 4 minutes is enough. Enough for what? He looks at me then, and I see it clearly. The crown he's been carrying, the weight he's been trying to set down, the man who came to this terminal searching for something he couldn't name. Enough to get you somewhere safe, he says, before this gets worse. The radio crackles one more time. 4th unit en route. ETA, 3 minutes. Werner's hand hovers over the breaker panel. Last chance to walk away. Tell security you never saw me. Go back to your cafe and your tills and your numbers that don't argue. I think about the elderly couple he helped, the breaker he fixed without asking, the way he asked permission before touching me, the clinical efficiency with which he protected me from men who came armed and prepared. And I think about survival skills 1 through 4, and the one I've never admitted. Sometimes staying safe means choosing the right kind of dangerous. Kill the breakers, I say. Werner's smile is brief but genuine, proud even. Hold on to something. He throws the master switch. The terminal plunges into absolute darkness. And somewhere in that darkness, a 4th radio crackles with sudden static confusion. We run. The cafe looks different in emergency lighting, all amber shadows and copper reflections, like we've stumbled into a photograph from another era. The security shutter is down, sealing us inside a space that suddenly feels more bunker than business. Rain still needles the skylights above, a relentless percussion that matches my pulse. Werner moves directly to the shutter controls, his fingers working the manual override with the ease of someone who understands systems designed to keep people in or out. The motor whines softly as the gate descends that final crucial foot, metal teeth meeting the floor track with a decisive click. That buys us 5 minutes, he says. Maybe 6. Before what? Before they cut power to the override, or Jerry opens it remotely, or they simply breach it. He turns to face me fully, and in the amber light his features carry a weight I haven't seen before. Decision made, mask coming off. Before that happens, you need to know the truth. I sink onto the nearest chair, my legs suddenly unreliable. I'm listening. Werner leans against the counter, arms crossed, and for a moment I see him calculating what to say, how much to reveal. Then something in his posture shifts, shoulders dropping slightly, jaw unclenching. The decision to be honest looks like relief. My name is Werner Butlerl. He watches my face for recognition. Most people pretend they haven't heard it. The ones who have usually pretend they don't believe it. The name rings familiar, something glimpsed in headlines I didn't read fully. Late-night news segments about organized crime families that operate in the negative space between legal and visible. The kind of people politicians deny exist, while law enforcement tracks their movements like weather patterns. Butlerl, I repeat slowly. As in the European shipping syndicate, the one linked to... I stop, suddenly aware of how many blanks I'm filling in with speculation. Yes, no elaboration, just confirmation. And you're head of the family. As of 18 months ago when my father had a stroke. He says it clinically, like reporting a quarterly earnings statement. I didn't ask for the position, didn't want it, but inheritance doesn't care about preference. I think about the way he fixed the breaker without being asked, the precision with which he helped the Chens, the clinical efficiency in the dish room. You came here to escape. I came here to breathe. He pushes off from the counter, pacing the small space with contained energy. There's an arranged alliance on the table, a marriage that would consolidate territories, end a 3-generation dispute, make everyone richer and theoretically safer. Very medieval, very expected. But you don't want it. I want... He stops mid-stride, running a hand through his dark hair. I wanted one night where no one bowed, where I could sit in a cafe and drink coffee made by someone who looked at me like I was just a man on a motorcycle, not a crown that needed managing. The vulnerability in that admission does something dangerous to my carefully maintained distance. So you ditched your security detail. Yes. He meets my eyes. Stupid in retrospect. My cousin runs a rival branch of the family, the one that didn't want me inheriting. He saw an opportunity and engineered this lockdown to pin me in place. Those men weren't here to kill me. They were here to extract me, film the capture, use it as leverage to force my hand on the alliance. The bomb threat, I say, pieces aligning. There never was one. No, just a credible enough tip to trigger protocol. His smile is bitter. They know how systems work, how airports respond, how to create chaos that looks official. The radio chatter we heard earlier suddenly makes terrible sense. Non-lethal force authorized. Priority retrieval. They didn't want Werner dead, they wanted him contained and documented. Proof of weakness to present to whoever makes decisions in his world. And Caleb? I ask. When he photographed your bike? He texted someone. Probably thought he was reporting suspicious activity to security. Werner's expression darkens. Instead, he gave my cousin's people confirmation that I was here. The photograph probably had metadata timestamps, location data, everything they needed. So Caleb betrayed you accidentally. The result is the same. Werner moves to the window, peering through the narrow gap between shutter and glass. My people are coming. They've been tracking the bike's camera feed, same as my cousin's team. But they're coming from the city, and the roads are compromised by the storm. Best estimate, 15 minutes. 15 minutes. A quarter hour that suddenly feels like the space between survival and disaster. Why are you telling me this? I ask quietly. Werner turns from the window, and his expression carries something I haven't seen before, not the tactical assessment, not the careful politeness, but raw honesty edged with guilt. Because you deserve the truth before you make a choice. He crosses the space between us, crouching so we're eye level. I have 2 exits for you, Shirley. Clean ones. No judgment either way. I'm listening. Exit 1. You never saw me. When security comes, you tell them you were hiding during the lockdown, that you heard sounds from the dish room but stayed in the cafe because protocol says shelter in place. Jerry will back you up. You'll be interviewed, released, and this becomes a story you tell about the night the airport went crazy. It's a good exit. Safe. Simple. The kind that lets me return to counting tills and pouring coffee and saving for Portland like none of this ever happened. And exit 2? You follow me through the staff tunnels to the secure parking lot on the north perimeter. My people will meet us there. You'll be protected, compensated for your trouble, and I'll make sure your name never appears in any report. He pauses. But you'll be choosing involvement. And involvement with my world has consequences. What kind of consequences? The kind where my cousin's people might come looking for you, to confirm what you saw or leverage what you know. The kind where staying safe means accepting protection you didn't ask for. His voice drops. The kind where your quiet life gets loud, at least for a while. I should choose exit 1. Any rational person would. This man is dangerous not to me, maybe, but to the careful equilibrium I've built. One night of chaos isn't worth risking 6 years of slow, steady progress toward escape. But I keep thinking about the way Werner asked before guiding me behind the prep table. How he positioned his body between me and violence without claiming ownership of my fear. How he fixed misses. Chen's lighting and reset that alarm and told me the truth even though lying would have been easier. And I think about Caleb outside, photographing the bike with malicious satisfaction. About Jerry in his office, counting costs instead of asking if I'm okay. About 6 years of being invisible, competent, safely small. Question. I say, yes? When you say your people will meet us, are we talking about armed men in suits, or? A ghost of that smile touches his mouth. 2 trusted associates. Both armed, yes. Both professional. One is my head of security. The other is my logistics coordinator. They've been with my family for over a decade. Will they hurt me if they think I'm a threat? No. The answer is immediate, absolute. I'll make it clear you're under my protection. They won't touch you. I stand, my legs steadier now that decision is crystallizing. The staff tunnels, I know them. I've worked here 6 years. There are 3 routes to north parking, but only one has clearance points I can badge through. Werner rises slowly, understanding dawning. You're choosing the tunnel. I'm choosing the truth. I cross to the service door, the one that leads to the maintenance corridors most passengers never see. You could have lied to me. Could have used the attraction I'm definitely not feeling, his smile widens, to manipulate me into helping. But you didn't. You gave me exits, and truth, and choice. And that's enough? I think about survival skill number 2. Never trust a man who doesn't ask before touching you. You asked. I say simply, every time. That's enough. Werner's expression does something complicated, relief and regret and gratitude tangled together. Thank you. Thank me when we're out. I swipe my badge at the service door panel. It beeps green. Stay close. Some of these corridors have motion sensors that trigger silent alarms if you don't disable them first. You know how to disable silent alarms? Survival skill number 5. Know your environment better than the people who designed it. We slip into the corridor just as voices rise near the main shutter security arriving with bolt cutters and authorization codes. The emergency lighting here is spaced farther apart, creating pools of shadow between amber islands. I lead Werner past the employee break room, through the utility junction where the terminal's nervous system lives, breakers and junction boxes and pipes labeled in fading marker. My badge opens the first checkpoint, then the second. At the third, Werner's hand touches my elbow, stopping me. Wait, he breathes. I freeze, listening. Radio chatter echoes from somewhere behind us, muffled by walls but getting closer. Then a second voice, this one from ahead, near the tunnel exit. Werner's posture shifts into high alert. He tilts his head, processing sound with the precision of someone who's learned to navigate by threats. Then both radios crackle in unison, and a voice I recognize, Jerry's dispatcher tone, broadcasts clearly. All personnel, evacuate via emergency exits. Code 7. Repeat. Code 7 evacuation. This is not a drill. I go rigid. Code 7 doesn't exist. I've memorized every emergency protocol in 6 years. We have code red for fire, code blue for medical emergency, code black for bomb threat. We have color codes and number codes and alphanumeric combinations. We do not have code 7. That's fake, I whisper, my mind already cataloging the voice modulation, the 2 perfect cadence. Someone's mimicking Jerry's voice on the security channel. Werner's expression turns glacial. To flush us into the open, they're forcing evacuation to see who moves where, which means they don't know exactly where we are. I grip my badge tighter, thinking, the tunnel has 3 exits. They can't cover all of them. They can if they're smart. Werner pulls out his phone the first time I've seen him use it and types something rapid fire. My people just confirmed. They're 6 minutes out. We need to hold position. In a tunnel with both ends potentially covered? Unless you have a better idea. I think about the utility junction we just passed. The maze of mechanical spaces that honeycomb beneath the terminal. The places I've been during 6 years of late. Shifts when equipment failed and someone needed to trace a problem to its source. I say slowly, but it involves a crawl space and a maintenance shaft, and you'll probably ruin that expensive jacket. Werner looks at his yellow jacket, still pristine despite everything, then at me. The jacket's already ruined. Lead the way. I backtrack to the utility junction, finding the access panel I'm looking for. A 3-foot square hatch marked HVAC Access, authorized personnel only. This feeds into the main ventilation system, I explain, already working the latch. There's a vertical shaft that connects to the north parking structure's air intake. It's not code compliant for human passage, which is why it's perfect. How do you know about it? Last winter, the heating system failed during a midnight shift. Jerry was off-site. I called maintenance, but they were hours away, so I traced the problem myself. I pull the hatch open, revealing darkness and the smell of recycled air. Found a stuck damper and a family of pigeons. Fixed the damper, relocated the pigeons. Never told Jerry because he would have written me up for safety violations. Werner peers into the shaft, then looks at me with something close to awe. You're remarkable. I'm practical. I swing into the opening, my body remembering the route. And I really don't want to get shot tonight, come on. He follows without hesitation, pulling the hatch closed behind us. The shaft is exactly as I remember, narrow, vertical, with maintenance rungs bolted into concrete. My hands find the first rung just as both radios crackle again. Code 7, North Corridor. All units respond. Below us, footsteps echo in the tunnel we just abandoned. Werner's breath is warm against my neck as we climb in perfect silence, 2 people ascending through darkness toward a parking lot where armed professionals are converging from multiple directions. And all I can think is that 6 years of counting tills just became the least interesting thing I've ever done. The ventilation shaft opens into a mechanical room that hasn't been updated since the terminal's original construction, all exposed ductwork and humming compressors. Werner drops through the opening first, landing with the silent precision of someone who's done this in worse conditions, then positions himself to catch me if I slip. I don't slip. 6 years of efficiency has made me good at controlled descents. North parking is through there, I whisper, pointing to a steel door marked with faded warnings about authorized access. But we'll exit into the open. No cover for about 40 feet. Werner checks his phone, the screen's glow illuminating his face in harsh blue. My people are 2 minutes out. Black Range Rover, diplomatic plates. He looks up. Your cousin's team will be watching the standard exits. Then we don't use standard exits. I'm already moving toward a secondary door. One that leads to the ground equipment tunnels the arteries that let fuel trucks and baggage tractors move beneath the terminal without interfering with passenger traffic. This connects to the private hangar. Used to be for VIP parking before they built the new executive terminal. Used to be? Now it's mostly storage, but it has vehicle access and... I pause, thinking through the layout, and sight lines that make ambushes harder. Werner's expression shifts into something approving. You think tactically. I think about escape routes. I badge us through the door. 6 years of night shifts means 6 years of mapping every way out of here that doesn't involve walking past my supervisor's office. The equipment tunnel is exactly as claustrophobic as I remember. Low ceiling, harsh lighting, the smell of jet fuel and concrete. Our footsteps echo despite our attempts at silence. Twice we freeze as voices carry from adjacent corridors, security teams sweeping the facility, their radios crackling with updates that might be real or might be more false codes. Werner moves like a shadow-given substance, his attention cataloging every sound, every sightline, every potential threat. When we pass a security camera, he simply lifts a rolling maintenance bin and positions it to block the lens casual vandalism that looks like accidental obstruction. They'll notice, I murmur. By then we'll be gone. The tunnel slopes upward, delivering us to a junction point where 3 corridors converge. Werner's hand finds my elbow, stopping me before I can round the corner. Patrol? He breathes, barely audible. I press flat against the wall, listening. 2 voices, male, discussing the lockdown with the weary irritation of security guards working overtime during a storm. Their footsteps recede toward the main terminal. We wait 30 seconds. Then Werner nods, and we move. The private hangar access is exactly where memory promised a reinforced door with a biometric scanner that should require both badge and fingerprint. Should. But the scanner's red light blinks in a pattern I recognize. System error, defaulting to badge, only mode. Someone in maintenance has been lazy about repairs. I swipe my badge. The lock disengages with a heavy click. After you, Werner says, and I catch the ghost of his smile even in the dim light. The hangar beyond is vast and shadowed, emergency lighting creating more darkness than illumination. A single corporate jet sits dormant on the concrete, its white fuselage ghostly in the amber glow. The space smells of aviation fuel and rain. The massive hangar doors are cracked open about 3 feet, enough to see the parking area beyond and the first hints of dawn bleeding gray into the storm-dark sky. Werner's phone buzzes. He glances at it, tension visibly leaving his shoulders. They're here. 30 seconds. I move toward the hangar doors, drawn by the promise of open air and escape. Through the gap I can see the parking area, empty except for a few ground vehicles, and a man steps into view. Not Werner's people. Wrong body language, wrong positioning. He's holding a phone at arm's length, camera function active, lens pointed directly at the hangar entrance. Werner, I say quietly. He's beside me in an instant, his entire posture shifting when he sees what I've seen. Fuck. The man, early 40s. Expensive rain jacket. The kind of professional calm that suggests he's done this before raises his voice to carry. Werner Butlerl. I have you on airport property during an active security incident. That's trespassing, possible terrorism charges, definitely something the media would love to discuss. Your cousin's fixer, I guess. Marcus Venn. Professional problem creator. Werner's voice is flat with recognition. He'll stream this live if I step outside. Create a spectacle. Force me back to the table with my credibility destroyed. So don't step outside. My people can't come in without triggering every alarm in the facility. He runs a hand through his hair, calculating. He's positioned perfectly. One camera, one narrative, and I'm back in a cage I just escaped. I watch Marcus through the gap, noticing details. His badge lanyard hanging wrong. The maintenance vest that doesn't match the actual airport contractor colors. The way he's standing in a pool of light, while keeping his back to the parking area shadows. He wants to be filmed. Wants the contrast Werner emerging from darkness into his prepared spotlight. But he's made a mistake. Give me your phone, I say. Werner hands it over without question. What are you thinking? That he wants a spectacle. I'm already moving toward the door. So let's give him one. Surely. Trust me. I step through the hangar door before Werner can stop me, and Marcus's camera swings toward me immediately. His expression flickers confusion, then dismissal. I'm not the target he came for. You're trespassing, I say clearly, loudly, my voice carrying the authority of 6 years managing difficult passengers. This is a restricted facility. I'm authorized press, Marcus says smoothly, recovering. Documenting a security incident. Really? I hold up Werner's phone, activating the camera function, zooming in on Marcus's badge. Because that's a contractor badge for Fleming Industrial, and they lost the airport account 8 months ago. I know because I processed their final invoices. Marcus's smile falters slightly. And that evacuation code you broadcast, code 7? I step closer, my own phone now recording him, recording me. Doesn't exist. I've worked here 6 years, memorized every protocol. You fabricated an emergency order to flush people into the open. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about a man in an expired security vest, standing on airport property with recording equipment during a lockdown, broadcasting false emergency codes. I zoom in on his lanyard where his actual credentials hang different company, different access level. That's federal crime territory. Want me to call it in? Or do you want to stop filming and leave quietly? Behind me, I hear the distinctive growl of a high-end engine. Werner's people arriving. A black Range Rover pulls into view, stopping precisely between Marcus and his escape route. 2 men exit, one built like a wall, the other lean and sharp-eyed, both moving with the coordinated precision of professionals who've worked together for years. Marcus's camera wavers. Your choice, I say quietly. Lower the phone and walk away, or explain to airport police why you're impersonating security during an active incident. For 5 long seconds, nothing moves except the rain. Then Marcus lowers his phone. This isn't over, he says, but he's already backing toward a dark sedan I didn't notice before. Yes, Werner says from behind me, his voice carrying across the concrete. It is. The two men from the Range Rover Werner's lieutenants move to intercept Marcus, but not with violence, just presence, just the clear suggestion that departure is his best option. Marcus gets into his sedan and drives away, his camera still dark. Nobody dies. Nobody even gets hurt. The math just changes. Werner appears at my side, something like wonder in his expression. You changed the narrative. I corrected it. My hands are shaking now, adrenaline catching up. He wanted a spectacle. I gave him liability. The wall-built lieutenant approaches, speaking quietly to Werner, in what sounds like German or Dutch. Werner responds in the same language, his tone clipped and authoritative. The lieutenant nods, then moves to secure the perimeter. The lean one, older, maybe 50, with sharp eyes that miss nothing, studies me with open curiosity. You're Shirley. I am. Marcus Keller, head of security. He extends a hand. Thank you for keeping him alive. I shake his hand, surprised by the warmth in his grip. Thank you for arriving. We would have been faster, but the roads... He shakes his head. You bought us the time we needed. That was smart work with the camera. Werner touches my elbow gently. Can you give us a moment? Marcus Keller nods and retreats to the Range Rover, giving us the illusion of privacy in the vast hangar space. I need to go, Werner says, and I can hear the regret in it. Clean up the mess, make sure Marcus Venn doesn't regroup, get my cousin back in his corner. I know. But first, he stops, seeming to struggle with words. I came here searching for something, a night where I could breathe, a life I could choose instead of inherit. I found it. In a cafe with a woman who reads people like I read threats, who maps escape routes and knows fake protocols and steps into camera range to flip a narrative. He pauses. I found you. My throat tightens. Werner, I'd like to come back, he says. Not as Butlerl, not with entourages or expectations, just as Werner. The man who drinks coffee however you make it and fixes breakers and listens more than he speaks. His dark eyes hold mine, if that's something you'd allow. I think about the last 6 hours. About violence and truth and the way he asked permission before every touch. About the life I've been building, small, safe, solitary, and how it suddenly feels less like safety and more like hiding. Terms, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. Terms, he agrees, almost smiling. No lies. If you can't tell me something, say so, but don't lie. Agreed. No entourage, if you come back alone. I'll meet Werner, not the crown. Agreed. And no surprises. I glance toward the Range Rover where Marcus Keller waits with professional patience. If your world is going to touch mine, I get to know about it before it arrives. New ambushes. New K's I didn't consent to. Werner nods slowly, seriously. Those are fair terms. I accept them. Then yes. The word feels like stepping off a cliff and discovering I can fly. Come back as Werner. He takes my hand, the one that bandaged his knuckles, the one that held steady while everything else shook, and brings it to his lips with old-world courtesy that should feel absurd but somehow doesn't. Thank you, he says against my knuckles. For the coffee, for the trust, for changing the math. Thank you for not lying. The PA system crackles throughout the terminal, Jerry's actual voice this time. All clear, lockdown lifted, normal operations resuming. Thank you for your patience. Werner releases my hand and moves toward the silver power bike that Marcus Keller has somehow retrieved from the terminal entrance. The yellow jacket still bright despite everything flashes as he pulls it on. How will I start, then stop, unsure how to finish. I'll find you, Werner promises. When the dust settles, when it's safe. He swings onto the bike with practiced ease. Only when you're working, though. I'm a creature of habit. The engine growls to life, and dawn continues its slow leak across the horizon, gray becoming pearl, storm finally breaking. Werner pauses, visor up, looking at me with an expression I can't quite read. Shirley? That culinary program in Portland? How did you... You mentioned saving for something, and you have flour burns on your right wrist that suggest you bake. He smiles. If you need a reference, I know some restaurant owners who owe me favors. Then the visor drops, and the yellow jacket becomes a bright streak against the pale morning as he accelerates toward the perimeter exit. I watch until he disappears. Behind me, the departure sign still glows through the hangar doors, gold letters promising journeys to elsewhere. For 6 years, I've watched other people leave. Tonight, I learned what it means to choose arrival. The official report called it a security false alarm triggered by equipment malfunction during severe weather conditions. 3 men were arrested for trespassing and assault, their identities redacted, their motives unexplained, their bail posted by anonymous benefactors within hours. Caleb was reassigned to a warehouse facility 40 miles inland. No explanation, no goodbye. Just gone, like a problem Jerry solved with a phone call he never mentioned. I didn't ask questions. The first Tuesday after the lockdown, I arrived for my shift expecting reporters, investigators, someone official wanting statements about the night a Mafia heir allegedly took refuge in my cafe. Instead, I found Jerry at the espresso machine, muttering about supply costs, the terminal gleaming and pristine as if nothing had ever disturbed its polished equilibrium. "You good?" he asked, not quite meeting my eyes. "I'm good." "Good. Brewer's acting up again. Think you can sweet-talk it into cooperation?" And that was it. The night folded itself into airport mythology, another strange incident to mention during slow shifts, already fading into the background hum of running a business where nothing is supposed to go wrong but occasionally does. Except Werner kept his promise. The first time he returned, I almost missed him. Thursday evening, the dinner rush just ending, and I was refilling sugar caddies when movement caught my peripheral vision. A man in dark jeans and a charcoal sweater, settling into the corner table by the window where the departures sign cast everything in gold. No yellow jacket, no power bike visible through the glass. Just Werner, watching me with that quiet intensity I'd learned meant he was cataloging exits and threat levels and the exact distance between us. "Coffee?" I asked, approaching with professional neutrality even as my heart did something complicated. "Whatever you recommend." Bold choice, trusting my judgment. That ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "I've seen your judgment. It's excellent." I poured him the single-origin Ethiopian roast bright, complex, the kind of coffee that rewards attention. He accepted it with both hands, the way someone holds something they don't want to drop. "How's the breaker?" he asked. "Still working. You do quality repairs." I had good motivation. We held eye contact for 3 seconds too long, the space between us humming with everything we weren't saying. Then another customer signaled for their check, and I retreated behind professional courtesy. Werner stayed for an hour. He didn't read, didn't work on a laptop, just sat with his coffee and watched the jet's taxi past, and left a tip that was generous but not stupid, the kind that said thank you without saying I'm buying your silence. After he left, I found a napkin tucked under his empty mug with a single word in neat handwriting. "Tuesday?" I wrote back on my own napkin and left it at the host stand where he'd see it if he returned. "Only when I'm working." Tuesday became a pattern, then Thursday, then Sunday, brunch shifts when the terminal filled with families and Werner looked almost peaceful watching the chaos of living unfold around him. He never presumed, never arrived with entourage or expectation, just Werner in well-made clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent but wore like he'd forgotten their value. He ordered what I suggested, listened to my recommendations about food pairings, asked questions about my day that suggested he actually cared about the answers. "The couple in Section B are celebrating their 40th anniversary," I told him one afternoon, nodding toward an elderly pair sharing dessert. "They fly to Hawaii every year on the same date. She always orders the chocolate torte. He always pretends he's not going to have any, then steals half of hers." Werner watched them with something soft in his expression. 40 years. 40 years of chocolate torte theft. That's... He paused, searching for words. "That's what I came looking for. That night during the lockdown. That kind of ordinary. Found anything?" His eyes met mine. Still looking. The small rituals accumulated like snow. He walked me to my car after closing, but only when I asked, never presuming, always waiting for permission. The first time I accepted, he maintained careful distance, hands in pockets, conversation easy and unthreatening. He noticed the passenger door didn't quite latch, and returned the next shift with a tube of lubricant, and fixed it while I finished my closing checklist. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "I know." He tested the latch twice, satisfied with the click. "But you shouldn't drive with a faulty door. It's not safe." When I mentioned Micah casually, testing how Werner would react to the knowledge that my life included a 6-year-old, he just nodded and asked what Micah liked to read. The next Thursday, a package arrived at the cafe addressed to me. A first-edition copy of Where the Wild Things Are, gently used with a note that said only, "For your library." I shouldn't have kept it. Accepting gifts crossed a line I hadn't fully defined yet. But Micah loved Maurice Sendak, and the book smelled like old paper and possibility. And when I read it to him that night, he asked if we could read it again, and I said yes. Werner never mentioned the book, just asked the following Tuesday if Micah enjoyed the story, and seemed genuinely pleased when I admitted he'd requested it 3 nights running. He has good taste, Werner said. He's 6. His other favorite book is about a dinosaur who drives a garbage truck. Also excellent taste. I found myself laughing, actually laughing, and Jerry looked up from his paperwork with an expression suggesting he'd noticed something shifting in the cafe's ecosystem. At home, I tried to maintain equilibrium. Micah's routine continued unchanged. School drop-off at 7, babysitter pickup at 3, homework at the kitchen table where I could supervise between sleep and my evening shift. My neighbor Mrs. Chen, not the same Chens from the terminal, though the coincidence made me smile, watched him on my late nights, feeding him dumplings and teaching him Mandarin phrases he repeated with perfect pronunciation. "Mama, what's motorcycle in Chinese?" he asked one evening apropos of nothing. "I don't know, baby." "Why?" "Mrs. Chen says her nephew has one. Says it's silver and fast like a dragon." I filed that detail away, probably coincidence, possibly not, and helped him sound out his spelling words. But lying awake after Micah slept, I replayed conversations. The way Werner asked about my day as if he genuinely wanted to map the topology of my life. How he remembered that I preferred dark chocolate to milk, that I was saving for Portland's culinary program, that my mother called every Sunday, and I always let it go to voicemail because her conversations required more energy than I had to spare. He was learning me, and I was letting him. The thought terrified and thrilled in equal measure, because Werner wasn't just a man who came for coffee. He was Werner Butlerlull, a name that carried weight and danger and the kind of complications that could swallow a life whole. Dating him, if that's what this slow accumulation of attention was, meant accepting protection I didn't ask for, meant men in dark suits hovering at edges, meant Micah growing up adjacent to a world where violence was a tool and loyalty was currency. But it also meant Werner, who fixed broken things without being asked and walked me to my car only when invited and looked at Micah's crayon drawings like they were museum pieces. I didn't know how to reconcile those versions. 6 weeks after the lockdown, I arrived for my shift to find a bouquet at my station. Not roses too obvious. Instead, white orchids arranged with architectural precision, their blooms like small, perfect sculptures. The card was unsigned, but the handwriting was familiar. "I would like to tell you everything, if you're willing to hear it. W." My hands trembled slightly as I tucked the card into my apron pocket. Jerry raised an eyebrow. "Secret admirer?" "Something like that. Is he the reason you've been smiling at the espresso machine?" "I don't smile at the espresso machine. Surely you've named it. You call it Bernard. That's concerning. Bernard is a perfectly respectable name for a temperamental Italian brewer." Jerry snorted but didn't push, which I appreciated because I didn't have answers yet. Just questions and orchids and a card promising truth. I was pulling supplies for the evening rush when my phone buzzed. A news alert, the kind I'd set up weeks ago to track anything related to the Butler name. Breaking. Butler-Lull Alliance negotiations stall. Sources report heir refuses arranged marriage terms. The article was brief, mostly speculation, unnamed sources. The kind of reporting that happened when legitimate journalists couldn't get confirmation but knew something was shifting in the shadows. But the core claim was clear. Werner had walked away from the arrangement his family wanted, had chosen autonomy over alliance. Had chosen. I looked at the orchids, at the card in my pocket, at the corner table by the window where Werner would arrive in approximately 90 minutes because Thursday was his pattern and he was nothing if not consistent. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "The news is accurate." I told them no. Consequences pending but manageable. "Still interested in coffee tonight? W." I stared at the message, at the casual way he mentioned consequences like they were weather patterns to navigate rather than threats to survival. This was the moment. The decision point where I could maintain safe distance or step forward into whatever Werner was offering: truth, complications, a life that definitely wouldn't stay small and quiet. Micah's face flickered through my mind. His smile when I read him wild things, the way he asked about motorcycles and dragons. The responsibility of being the only barrier between my son and a world that could be beautiful or brutal depending on who held the door. I should say no. Should thank Werner for the coffee dates and the fixed door latch and the book, but explain that I had a son to protect and a simple life to maintain and dreams of Portland that didn't include men with crowns they were trying to escape. I should. My fingers moved across the screen. Yes. Same time. And Werner? Bring the truth. All of it. I hit send before I could reconsider. Outside, the departures sign glowed against the afternoon sky. Jets taxied toward runways. People moved through the terminal carrying luggage and dreams and complicated lives they'd learned to navigate one choice at a time. I arranged Werner's orchids in a water glass and placed them where I could see them from every angle of the cafe. Then I started brewing the Ethiopian roast. Because Werner would want coffee, and I wanted my hands busy when he arrived with everything he'd been holding back. The truth was coming. I just had to decide if I was ready to let it land. Werner arrives exactly on time, which I've learned means he's been in the parking lot for at least 15 minutes, mapping sightlines and calculating risk before entering any space. The cafe is closed, chairs upturned on tables, floors gleaming from my final sweep. Jerry left an hour ago with a knowing look and instructions to set the alarm when I leave. The terminal hums with its night shift energy, the skeleton crew of cleaners and security, the occasional red-eye passenger moving through like ghosts. Werner wears the charcoal sweater again, dark jeans, boots that have seen actual use. No yellow jacket, that stays on the bike now, a beacon he only wears when he wants to be found. Thank you for staying, he says, pausing at the threshold as if waiting for explicit permission to enter my space after hours. Come in. I gesture to the corner table, his table where I've already set 2 cups of Ethiopian roast and the orchids he sent. We should talk sitting down. He settles into the chair with that particular stillness that means he's prepared for difficult conversation. I take the seat across from him, the table between us suddenly feeling like both barrier and bridge. The arrangement, Werner begins without preamble, was negotiated before I inherited. My father and Victor Constantine, head of the Eastern Branch, decided their children should marry to consolidate territories and end 3 generations of border disputes. But you refused. I refused. He wraps both hands around his coffee cup like it's an anchor. Publicly, formally, 3 days ago in front of witnesses that matter in my world. What was the cost? Werner's smile is brief and bitter. Constantine pulled trade agreements worth $40 million annually. 2 family lieutenants resigned and joined his operation. My cousin Marcus, different Marcus, not Ven, leaked the refusal to pressure me into reconsidering. He pauses. And there's an outstanding contract on my reputation. Not my life, but my credibility. If they can prove I'm reckless, unstable, ruled by emotion instead of strategy, they can force a leadership challenge. I process this, sorting through implications. So coming here makes you vulnerable. Coming here makes me human. His dark eyes meet mine, which, depending on who's watching, either validates my decision or proves their point. And the woman you were supposed to marry? Elena Constantine, 26, speaks 4 languages, has a degree in international finance and absolutely no interest in marrying me. His expression softens. We had coffee before I gave my formal refusal. She thanked me, said she was in love with her father's head of security and had been for 3 years. Now she's free to choose. So you freed 2 people. I freed myself, he corrects quietly. Elena's freedom was a fortunate side effect. Outside, a jet's engines spool up for departure, the sound vibrating through the glass. Werner watches it lift into the night sky with something like longing. What do you want, Werner? I ask directly. From me. From this. He takes a long moment, choosing words with visible care. Permission to be around, that's all. Coffee when you're working. Conversation that doesn't require me to calculate every word. The ability to walk you to your car without it, meaning I'm claiming territory. He pauses. I'm not asking for romance, Shirley. I'm asking for ordinary. The kind where I can show up at your cafe and order whatever you recommend and not have it be a political statement. Just coffee and conversation. Just that. His voice drops. Unless you wanted it to be more. Then we'd negotiate what more looks like. Together. The honesty of it does something dangerous to my carefully maintained boundaries. This man, this person who commands enough loyalty to have people risk federal charges on his behalf, is asking for the smallest possible claim on my life. I have terms, I say. I expected you would. I pull out my phone and open a note I've been drafting for days, ever since the orchids arrived and I realized this conversation was inevitable. Term 1. No weapons inside the cafe. I don't care what threats you're managing. This is a space where people come to feel safe, and guns make that impossible. Werner nods immediately. Agreed. I'll leave it in the bike lockbox. Term 2. No surprise appearances around Micah. If you're going to be in my life in any capacity that might touch his, I decide when and how. You don't show up at his school. You don't intercept the babysitter. You don't become part of his world until I explicitly invite you. Something shifts in Werner's expression, respect mixed with what might be relief. Agreed completely. Children deserve protection from adult complications. Term 3. I decide whether and when we see each other off-site. No pressure, no expectation. If I want coffee at the cafe and nothing more, that's the boundary, and you respect it. Agreed. Term 4. I hesitate because this one feels like admitting vulnerability. If your world is going to create danger for me or Micah, I get advance warning. No surprises. No chaos arriving without context. You tell me what's coming, and I decide if I can handle it. Werner leans forward, elbows on the table, his voice absolutely serious. That's the term I'm most grateful for. Yes, I promise you transparency about threats. And, he pauses, I'd like to add a provision if you'll allow it. Go ahead. Let me install a security system in your apartment. Under your name, controlled entirely by you. Commercial-grade cameras, reinforced locks, panic button connected to a monitoring service that's not affiliated with my organization. He raises a hand before I can protest. I know what you're thinking, that it's control disguised as protection, but the lockdown proved something. What? That my presence puts you at risk. The bike camera stream that night? It saved us because my people could track our location, but it also meant anyone tapping that feed knew exactly where I was. His jaw tightens. Caleb's photograph gave my cousin's team the opening they needed. And if they come back when they come back, because men like Marcus Venn don't give up easily, they'll look for leverage. Your leverage now. The words settle cold in my stomach. Because I helped you. Because you mattered enough for me to protect. Werner's voice gentles. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to give you the truth you asked for. And the truth is that knowing me has made you visible to people who calculate risk for a living. I think about Micah asleep in his room, about Mrs. Chen watching him when I work late, about the apartment's flimsy door lock that I've been meaning to upgrade but never quite saved enough to prioritize. The system would be mine, I ask, completely? Installed by a legitimate company with no connection to my organization. Paid in full, warranty under your name. You control every password, every access point. I wouldn't even have the codes unless you chose to give them to me. He pulls out his phone and shows me a contact page. This is Sarah Mendez. She runs a security company that specializes in domestic protection, stalking victims, people in witness protection, anyone who needs safety without surveillance. Call her. Ask her anything. She'll tell you I'm not on her client list, just someone who's referred people to her before. I study the contact information, then Werner's face. Why would you do this? Arrange protection you can't even access? Because you asked for advance warning about danger, and I'm giving you the tools to handle it even if I'm not there. His expression is painfully earnest. Because Micah deserves a mother who can sleep without checking the door lock 3 times. Because you matter, Shirley. And I can't unmake the risk I've created by being in your life, but I can make sure you're not defenseless against it. The cafe feels very quiet suddenly, just the hum of refrigeration and the distant sound of the terminal's mechanical breathing. I'll call Sarah Mendez, I say finally. And if she confirms what you're saying, I'll accept the security system. I pause. But Werner? If this gets worse, if knowing you puts Micah in actual danger, I'll walk away. I'll take my son and disappear, and you don't get to follow. You don't get to track me or protect me or insert yourself into that decision. Agreed. The word comes instantly with weight. Your son's safety supersedes everything else. If you need to vanish, I'll help you do it properly and then I'll stay gone. We sit with that promise between us, the acknowledgement that what we're building has limits, and those limits are shaped like a 6-year-old who loves dinosaur garbage trucks and where the wild things are. Okay, I say. Those are my terms. Do you accept them? Werner extends his hand across the table, formal, ceremonial. I accept them. All of them. I shake his hand, his grip warm and steady and entirely different from the last time he touched me, pulling me behind the prep table while armed men searched for us in the dark. Now your turn, I say. What are your terms? He looks genuinely surprised. I hadn't considered I was allowed any. Relationships require bilateral negotiation. What do you need from me? Werner thinks for a long moment, his thumb tracing the rim of his coffee cup. Honesty. If this stops working, if I become more burden than benefit, if the risk gets too high, if you simply decide you'd rather have your quiet life back, tell me directly. Don't ghost. Don't hint. Just say it clearly so I can respect the boundary. That's it? Just honesty? It's not a small thing, he says quietly. Most people in my life tell me what they think I want to hear. You've never done that. I'd like that to continue. Deal. We finish our coffee in comfortable silence, and I find myself studying him, the lines around his eyes that suggest he doesn't sleep enough. The careful way he holds himself like he's always calculating structural load, the small scar above his left eyebrow that I've never asked about. The overlook, Werner says eventually. Near the perimeter fence. Have you ever been? The access road past the cargo terminals? That one. It has a view of the runway at night. I used to go there before the lockdown when I needed to think. He meets my eyes. Would you want to see it? Now, I mean, if you have time. I should say no. Should go home to Micah and Mrs. Chen's dumplings and the safety of routine. I have time, I hear myself say. The overlook is exactly what Werner promised. A turnout on the service road where the chain-link perimeter fence runs parallel to the main runway. His bike is already here, the silver paint ghostly under security lighting. He must have ridden ahead while I locked up the cafe. We stand at the fence, watching jets taxi and depart, their landing lights cutting geometry into the darkness. The air smells like jet fuel and possibility. Thank you, Werner says after a while, for hearing me out, for setting terms instead of just walking away. Thank you for accepting them. A comfortable silence settles between us, broken only by the distant roar of engines and the wind moving through the chain link. Then Werner's phone buzzes. He glances at it, and his entire posture changes, alert but not alarmed. What? I ask. My security team. They're flagging a vehicle that's been circling your apartment complex for the past 20 minutes. He shows me the screen. A dark sedan, license plate partially obscured, driver's face not visible. Could be nothing. Could be someone looking for parking. Or it could be your cousin's people. Or police surveillance. Or a private investigator. Or... He stops himself. I'm speculating, but I'd feel better if I followed you home, just to be sure. The suggestion should feel invasive. Instead, it feels practical. Okay, I say, but you stay on the bike. You don't come inside. You don't meet Mrs. Chen or Micah. Understood. The sedan is gone by the time we reach my apartment complex, but the air feels different, charged with the knowledge that someone was watching. Werner idles at the curb on his bike, engine running, visor up. Call Sarah Mendez tomorrow, he says. Get that system installed. I will. And Shirley? Text me when you're inside safely. I don't have your number. He rattles off 10 digits. I enter them into my phone, save the contact as simply W. Good night, Werner. Good night. I walk to my building's entrance, key my way through the security door that isn't secure enough, climb the stairs to my third-floor apartment where Mrs. Chen is reading on my couch, and Micah is asleep in his room. Everything looks normal. But when I glance out the window before texting Werner, I see headlights across the street, a dark sedan, idling just beyond the streetlight's reach. As I watch, it pulls away slowly, deliberately, like a promise that it knows where I live. I text Werner, inside safely, but the car came back. His response is immediate. I saw it. Already sent the plate to my team. We'll know who it is by morning. Lock your door. Sleep if you can. I lock my door, all 3 locks, the flimsy ones I've been meaning to replace. Then I check Micah's room, watch him sleep with his stuffed dinosaur, and wonder what I've just invited into our carefully constructed life. Outside, the night presses against windows that suddenly feel too thin, and somewhere in the city, a dark sedan is filing a report about the woman who walked Werner Butler out of a locked terminal and hasn't walked away since. The security system Sarah Mendez installed took 4 hours and cost less than I expected. Commercial-grade cameras covering every entry point, reinforced strike plates on both doors, a panic button disguised as a smoke detector in Micah's room. She walked me through every feature twice, gave me her personal cell number, and never once asked why I needed protection. You control everything, she'd said, handing me the master tablet. Nobody sees these feeds but you. Not me, not my company, not whoever referred you. Your safety, your terms. That was 3 days ago. Tonight, the terminal thrums with pre-storm energy travelers rushing to beat the weather, flight boards flickering with delays. The kind of atmospheric pressure that makes people irritable and desperate for caffeine. I've pulled a double because Jenny called in sick, which means I won't see Micah until morning. Mrs. Chen has him overnight, probably teaching him to make dumplings and practicing Mandarin counting. The cafe is slammed. I move through orders with mechanical efficiency, the rhythm soothing even as thunder rumbles in the distance and the first fat raindrops spatter the skylights. Then I see Caleb. Not in the terminal proper, but through the service corridor window he's in the loading area, wearing a contractor's vest I don't recognize, talking to someone I can't quite see. My hand still on the espresso machine. Caleb was reassigned. 40 miles inland. He has no reason to be here. Unless he does. I finish the cappuccino I'm making, muscle memory taking over while my brain calculates threat levels, and hand it to the waiting customer with a smile that feels painted on. Then I signal to Jerry that I need a break and slip through the staff entrance before he can object. The loading corridor is exactly as I remember from the lockdown concrete floors, harsh fluorescent lighting, the smell of cardboard and jet fuel. Caleb is standing near Bay 3, his back to me, still talking to someone outside the loading door. I should retreat. Should call security or Jerry or literally anyone else. Instead, I step forward. Caleb. He spins, and his expression cycles through surprise, guilt, then something that tries to be friendly and fails. Shirley, hey, didn't expect to see you back here. Didn't expect to see you at all. Thought you were transferred. I was. He shrugs, hands in pockets, trying for casual. But I still have friends here. Came to pick up some stuff I left in my old locker. Your locker was cleared 3 weeks ago. I saw maintenance do it. His smile tightens. Must have missed something. Thunder cracks overhead, close enough to rattle the metal bay doors. The loading area suddenly feels very isolated, just me and Caleb and whoever's outside that door, hidden by the storm's darkness. Who were you talking to? I ask, keeping my voice level. Nobody. Just some delivery guy asking for directions. Caleb takes a step closer, and I instinctively take one back. Listen, Shirley, I've been wanting to talk to you. About that night. The lockdown. There's nothing to talk about. I think there is. Another step. You hid someone. That guy on the motorcycle. Security's been asking questions, and I've been thinking about what I saw, and you're working for someone now. The pieces click together, his presence here, the contractor vest, the way he's positioning himself between me and the exit. Someone who wants to know about Werner. Caleb's fake friendliness dissolves. You used his first name, so you do know him. I know he's someone you shouldn't be asking about. See, that's the thing. Caleb's voice drops, takes on an edge I remember from the night I finally rejected him outright. I did you a favor back then, reporting that bike. Tried to protect you from getting involved with dangerous people. But you went ahead and got involved anyway. Now there are people willing to pay for information about your friend Werner. People who want to know his patterns, his routines when he comes to the cafe. And you're giving them that information. I'm considering it. He pulls out his phone, swipes through what looks like photos the cafe, time-stamped, showing Werner at his usual table. They're offering good money, Shirley. Enough to make my warehouse job feel temporary instead of permanent. All I need is confirmation about a few details, like whether he's armed when he visits, what kind of security he travels with, whether you're, he pauses delicately, personally involved. My pulse hammers, but I keep my voice steady. You're trying to set him up. I'm trying to get paid for information I already have. There's a difference. Caleb steps closer again. Look, I'm giving you a chance here. Tell me what I need to know and I'll make sure they understand you're just a waitress who got caught up in things, but if you don't cooperate... If I don't cooperate, what? You'll tell them I'm important to him? Make me leverage? Caleb's silence is answer enough. Behind me, a door opens softly. I don't turn, but I know that footstep. That particular quality of controlled movement. Werner. Shirley, he says quietly. Step to your left, please. I move immediately, and Werner appears beside me, no yellow jacket tonight, just dark clothes that help him blend with the shadows. His attention is locked on Caleb with predatory focus. Werner Butlerly, Caleb says, trying to sound confident and failing. You were just attempting to extort information about my movements from someone under my protection. Werner's voice is conversational, almost pleasant. And you were doing it while working as a subcontractor for my cousin's operation. The vest you're wearing? That's Constantine Logistics. The man outside the loading door? Marcus Fenn's assistant. Caleb goes pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Werner pulls out his phone, taps the screen, and a voice recording plays Caleb's voice, tinny but clear. They're offering good money. All I need is confirmation. Whether he's armed when he visits. My breath catches. Werner was listening, recording. Here's what's going to happen, Werner continues, still in that calm, reasonable tone that somehow makes him more frightening than if he'd been shouting. Airport security has been notified of an unauthorized contractor attempting to access secure areas. They're reviewing footage of Mr. Ven's assistant planting what appears to be a suspicious device near Bay 3. Would you like to guess what's in that device, Caleb? Caleb's jaw works. How do you? Because I've been tracking Ven's movements for 6 weeks. I knew he'd make another attempt. I just didn't know he'd be stupid enough to use the same jealous ex-employee twice. Werner glances at me. Shirley, what time did you notice Caleb in this corridor? I check my phone. 7:43 p.m. And what's the protocol for reporting unauthorized personnel in secure areas? This is a test. Or a choice. Or both. Immediate notification to security, I say steadily, with exact time and location. Correct. Werner types something on his phone. Security is now en route. They'll find Caleb here, and they'll find the device Ven's assistant planted, which, if I'm not mistaken, is designed to trigger evacuation protocols similar to the false alarm from our first meeting. Except this time, there are cameras, and witnesses, and a recording of Caleb attempting to extort information from a cafe employee. Sirens begin to Doppler in the distance, real ones, multiple units. You set this up, Caleb says, realization dawning. This whole thing, you knew I'd come back. I knew Ven would try again. You were the predictable variable. Werner pockets his phone. Now you have a choice. Cooperate with airport security, provide testimony about who hired you and what they wanted, or face federal charges for conspiracy and attempted terrorism alone. Choose quickly, they'll be here in 90 seconds. Caleb looks between us, calculation visible on his face. Then the fight drains out of him. I'll cooperate. Smart. Werner steps aside, creating a clear path to the exit. Airport security will meet you at Bay 2. Walk there now, hands visible, no phone calls. Caleb goes. The moment he's out of sight, I turn to Werner. How long have you been planning this? Since the sedan outside your apartment 3 nights ago. I couldn't prove Ven was behind it, but I knew he'd escalate. Werner's expression softens. I'm sorry. I should have warned you more specifically. But I needed you to react naturally to Caleb, and I needed him to commit to extortion on record before security arrived. You used me as bait. I gave you a choice. He meets my eyes. You texted me 2 hours ago. Working late, Micah at Mrs. Chen's. I responded with, busy night for complications. Stay alert. You could have left early. Could have stayed in the cafe. Instead, you came back here when you saw Caleb. Why? Because I wanted to know what he was doing. Because 6 years of survival skills taught me to identify threats before they fully formed. Because some part of me knew Werner would be watching, and trusted that he wouldn't let me walk into actual danger. I wanted the truth, I say finally. And you got it. Caleb is working for Constantine's people. Ven is attempting another frame job. And this time, Werner gestures toward the loading bay, there are enough witnesses and evidence to put them both in front of prosecutors who won't be intimidated. Blue and red lights strobe through the bay windows. Airport security arrives in force 3 vehicles, 6 officers, all moving with the coordinated precision of people who've been briefed in advance. Werner's phone buzzes. He glances at it, nods to himself. The device has been located. It's a modified emergency beacon designed to trigger false evacuation signals. Ven's assistant was caught on 4 different cameras planting it. Clean outcome, I observe. Clean outcome, Werner agrees. Nobody dies. Nobody gets hurt. Just arrests and evidence and the kind of documentation that stands up in court. One of the security officers approaches a woman in her 50s with sergeant's stripes and the calm competence of someone who's seen everything. Mr. Butlerell, Miss McDaniel, we'll need statements from both of you. Of course. Werner's tone is perfectly cooperative. Shirley provided critical intelligence about the unauthorized contractor. I happened to be visiting the cafe when she alerted me to the situation. The sergeant's expression suggests she doesn't entirely believe this sanitized version, but she also doesn't seem inclined to push. We'll start with individual interviews. Miss McDaniel, if you'll come with me? I spend the next 40 minutes giving my statement truthful but carefully edited. focusing on Caleb's unauthorized presence and his attempt to ask questions about Werner. I don't mention extortion or payment or the fact that Werner recorded the conversation, just the facts a cafe employee would reasonably notice. By the time I'm released, the terminal has been cleared, the device removed, and Caleb and Ven's assistant are in custody. The storm has fully arrived, rain hammering the skylights, thunder rolling like artillery. Werner is waiting near the cafe entrance, hands in pockets, looking tired but satisfied. "Thank you," he says simply. "For what?" "For choosing involvement. You could have walked away when you saw Caleb. Could have called security and let them handle it. Instead, you stayed. You participated. You changed the outcome. You orchestrated it. I created the conditions. You executed the strategy." He pauses. There's a difference. Jerry emerges from his office, takes one look at the security vehicles and the police tape around the loading bay, and sighs heavily. "I don't want to know, do I?" "Probably not," I admit. "Am I going to be dealing with insurance claims and investigators for the next 3 weeks?" Werner steps forward. "All damages will be covered by my organization, Mr. Reeves. You'll receive confirmation tomorrow. And airport security has been very clear that your cafe and staff had no involvement in the incident." Jerry looks between us, calculation visible. "You know what? I'm going home. Surely you're off the schedule until Monday. Paid. Go sleep or whatever people do after almost getting caught in security incidents." He points at Werner. "And you, I don't care who you are or what you're dealing with. But if my cafe gets shut down because of your complications, we're going to have words." "Understood." Werner's tone carries genuine respect. Jerry leaves, muttering about insurance and paperwork, and why he ever thought running an airport cafe was a good retirement plan. The terminal feels very quiet suddenly, just me and Werner and the rain and the distant sounds of investigators documenting evidence. "I should go home," I say. "Check on Micah. Make sure Mrs. Chen isn't worried. I'll walk you to your car." "Werner, please." The single word carries weight. "Let me at least do that." We walk through the terminal in silence, our footsteps echoing on polished floors. The departures sign glows gold through the rain-streaked windows. A few delayed passengers huddle near gates, waiting for storms to clear. At my car, Werner pauses. "Dinner?" he says abruptly. "Somewhere with no cameras, no complications, no rival family members trying to document our existence. Would that be something you'd want?" I think about the past 8 weeks. About coffee and orchids and security systems, and Werner asking permission before every boundary he crosses. About the way he orchestrated tonight's trap without putting me in actual danger, giving me choice even while managing threats I couldn't see. About the fact that knowing him has made my life infinitely more complicated and somehow, inexplicably, better. "Yes," I say. "But we take my car." Werner's smile is genuine, surprised, pleased. "Your car? Your bike is a tracking beacon. Your Range Rover probably has more security features than Air Force One. My Honda has a tape deck and a check engine light that's been on since 2019. Nobody's following that." He laughs. Actually laughs. The sound bright and unexpected. "Your car it is." "When?" "Tomorrow night. Micah has a sleepover at his friend Devin's house. I'm free after 7. I'll make a reservation. Somewhere normal, I specify. Not the kind of place where people bow or remember your last name. I know exactly the place. Werner opens my car door, waits until I'm settled. "Drive safe. Text me when you're home." I will. I drive away watching him in my rearview mirror, Werner Butlerlow, standing in the rain outside an airport cafe, hands in pockets, looking like just a man watching someone he cares about leave safely. The storm breaks fully as I reach my apartment complex, rain sheeting down so hard I have to run from the parking lot to my building. Mrs. Chen meets me at the door with towels and tea, and Micah still sound asleep in his room. "Big storm," she observes, her English careful and precise. "You okay?" "I'm okay." "Good." She pats my hand. "The cameras you installed, they work well?" "Very well." "Good," she says again, and I realize she knows exactly why I needed security. You have good instincts. Trust them. After she leaves, I check the security feed Sarah installed, all clear, no shadowed sedans, no watchers, just rain and ordinary night. I text Werner. "Home safe. Micah sleeping. Tomorrow at 7. His response comes immediately. "Tomorrow at 7. Thank you for trusting me tonight." "Thank you for keeping it clean," I reply. I check on Micah still asleep, Still safe, still blissfully unaware that his mother just helped orchestrate a counterintelligence operation in an airport loading bay. Then I pour myself tea and sit by the window, watching rain wash the city clean, and wonder if this is what choosing arrival instead of departure feels like. Tomorrow, I have a date with a man who carries a crown he's learning to set down. Tonight, I have ordinary safety and storm sounds and the knowledge that I changed the math again. It's enough. For now, it's enough. My Honda makes a concerning noise as I pull into the restaurant parking lot, something between a wheeze and a prayer, but it gets us there. Werner is already waiting, leaning against the weathered railing that separates the gravel lot from the rocky beach below. No yellow jacket. Just dark jeans, a navy sweater, and an expression that suggests he's been here for 20 minutes mapping exits and calculating whether this counts as a date or just dinner. You found it, he says, pushing off the railing. Your directions were good. I lock the car, the Honda's locks click with their usual arthritic protest, and take in the restaurant. A converted fisherman's cottage perched above the water, string lights wrapped around the porch posts, windows glowing warm against the twilight. This is perfect. It's owned by a retired couple who don't read society pages or care about European shipping dynasties. The food is excellent, and the nearest camera is half a mile away at the marina. Werner offers his arm with old-world courtesy. Shall we? Inside, the restaurant is exactly what he promised. Small, intimate, the kind of place where locals come for anniversaries and tourists stumble upon by accident. Wooden tables worn smooth by decades of use, nautical charts framed on walls, the smell of garlic and fresh bread and ocean salt mixing into something that makes my stomach remind me I skipped lunch. Our table is in the corner, positioned so Werner can see the entrance, and I can see the water through the window. The server, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and zero recognition of Werner's name, brings water and menus and tells us about the special like we're just two people on a Friday date. Which, I suppose we are. This is strange, I say, after she leaves. Strange how? Strange that it feels normal. I study the menu, though I'm not really reading it. We've had coffee dozens of times, but this is different. More deliberate. Is different bad? No. I meet his eyes. Just unfamiliar. I haven't been on a date in 3 years. Haven't wanted to be. What changed? You asked. The simple honesty of it surprises me. Most men assume. You asked if I wanted dinner, if I wanted to drive, if this was okay. You've been asking since the night we met. Werner's expression does something complicated. My father never asked my mother anything, just announced decisions and expected compliance. I watched that dynamic destroy them both slowly. He traces the rim of his water glass. I decided early that if I ever found someone worth knowing, I'd do the opposite. Ask. Listen. Let them lead. The server returns, and we order grilled fish for me, pasta for Werner, a bottle of wine we agree to split. After she leaves, the conversation settles into something easier, less weighted. Tell me something true, Werner says. Something you don't usually share. I think about deflecting, but his openness deserves reciprocation. The first time I felt safe was in my elementary school library, 3rd grade. My parents were going through a divorce, the ugly kind with lawyers and screaming and me as collateral damage, but the librarian, Mrs. Okoye, she'd let me stay during recess when it stormed. Said I could organize the returned books, but really she was just giving me a place to breathe. I pause, surprised by the memory's clarity. She had this green cardigan she wore every day. It smelled like peppermint and old books, and for 30 minutes every storm day I got to exist somewhere that wasn't falling apart. Werner listens with complete attention, the kind that makes you feel like your words are being cataloged and treasured. Do you still talk to her? She passed away when I was in high school. Cancer. I smile despite the sadness. But I think about her every time I organize something, every time I try to create small pockets of order in chaos. Like counting tills. Like counting tills. Our food arrives, and we eat in comfortable silence broken by small observations, the quality of the wine, the way the ocean sounds different at night, how strange it is to sit across from each other at a normal table after so many weeks of cafe counters and careful distance. Your turn, I say eventually. Tell me something true. Werner sets down his fork, considering. The first honest thing I ever built was a dog run. I was 14, and we had this rescue dog, a German Shepherd, someone abandoned because she was too anxious, too broken. My father wanted to get rid of her, but I convinced him to give me 2 weeks to see if I could help. And? I taught myself to weld. Built her a run in the garden where she could see the house but feel protected. Made it exactly the size she needed, not too big to be overwhelming, not too small to be a cage. His voice softens. Took me 3 weeks and about 50 failed attempts, but eventually she started sleeping through nights, started trusting that the space was hers. What happened to her? She lived another 8 years, died peacefully in her sleep. Werner's smile is bittersweet. My father never understood why I spent so much time on a damaged dog, but building that run taught me something important. What? That safety isn't about walls. It's about scale, about creating space that's the right size for the person or animal who needs it. He meets my eyes. I think about that a lot with you. With me? You've built a life that's exactly the size you need. Small apartment, clear routines, a son you're protecting from chaos. And he gestures vaguely, the opposite of that. Large complications, unclear boundaries, chaos as a baseline. I'm trying to figure out how to be in your life without destroying the scale you've built. The vulnerability in that admission does something dangerous to my carefully maintained equilibrium. So what's your solution, I ask. Werner takes a long breath. I restructure my world instead of asking you to expand yours. I come to you coffee, conversation, dinner in normal restaurants. I keep the crown and the entourage and all the weight that comes with my name outside your space. I offer you protection, you control, transparency, you design, and truth without spectacle. He pauses. And I ask, not assume, whether that's something you'd want to try. For how long? As long as it works. As long as you want it. There's no deadline, no expectation that this becomes something specific. He searches for words. Just us, figuring out what shape this takes, slowly, on your terms. I think about Micah asleep at Devon's house, about Mrs. Chen's knowing looks, and Sarah Mendez's security system. About 6 years of careful isolation and 8 weeks of Werner asking permission before crossing every threshold. I have conditions, I say. I expected you would. Micah meets you when I decide he's ready, not before. And when he does, you're just Werner, a friend from the cafe. Nothing more complicated until we know this is stable. Agreed. You don't restructure your world to the point where it destabilizes. I don't want you creating power vacuums or making enemies just to have coffee dates. Your safety matters too. Something shifts in Werner's expression, gratitude mixed with surprise. Agreed. And we define this as we go. No assumptions about what we're building. We check in regularly, adjust as needed, and either of us can walk away if it stops working. Agreed. Werner extends his hand across the table. Those are good terms. I shake his hand, and this time he doesn't let go immediately. Just holds my hand gently, his thumb tracing small circles against my palm. So we're trying this, I say. You and me. Slow courtship with clear boundaries and no crowns. Just Werner and Shirley, he confirms, figuring out what ordinary looks like when neither of us has much practice with it. We finish dinner talking about smaller things. Micah's upcoming school play, the new espresso machine Jerry's threatening to buy, Werner's ongoing battle with his cousin that's moving from shadows into actual legal channels. The conversation feels easier than it should, natural in a way that makes me forget we're from such different worlds. When the check arrives, Werner pays before I can protest. Let me have this, he says. Small gesture of appreciation for driving your remarkable Honda. My Honda is a dignified vehicle. Your Honda sounds like it's coughing up a lung. It has character. It has problems. He grins. But so do I, so that seems fair. Outside, the temperature has dropped, and the ocean wind carries the promise of winter. I pull my jacket tighter and look toward my car, suddenly reluctant for the evening to end. Come with me, Werner says. I want to show you something. Where? The overlook, the real view. He gestures toward his bike, the silver power bike parked at the far end of the lot, gleaming under security lighting. I brought a spare helmet. I should say no. Should drive home to my safe apartment and my normal life and not get on a motorcycle with a man who carries complications like other people carry briefcases. Okay, I say instead. The helmet fits perfectly. Werner adjusted the sizing before I arrived, somehow knowing I'd say yes. I climb on behind him, and he guides my hands to his waist. Hold on, he says. Not too tight unless you're nervous. I'll take it slow. The engine rumbles to life, and we pull onto the coastal road. Werner keeps his promise. No racing, no showing off, just steady speed that lets me take in the view. Ocean to our left, dark and vast, scattered lights of the city to our right, and above us a sky so clear the stars feel close enough to touch. We ride for 20 minutes, the world reducing to wind and engine sound and the solid warmth of Werner's back against my chest. My fear evaporates somewhere around the 3rd mile, replaced by something that might be joy. The overlook is different at night, the perimeter fence lit by security floods, the runway stretching away like a promise, jets taking off and landing in their eternal choreography of departure and arrival. Werner kills the engine, and we sit there in sudden silence, my arms still around his waist. "Thank you," I say against his shoulder. "For all of it. Dinner, the ride, the patience. Thank you for saying yes." He covers my hands with one of his. For trying this despite every rational reason not to. We dismount, and Werner produces a thermos from the bike storage coffee, still hot, poured into 2 metal cups he hands me while he works. "You came prepared," I observe. "I hoped you'd say yes to the ride, wanted to have something for after." We stand at the fence, coffee warming our hands, watching a jet taxi toward takeoff. The engines spool up, that distinctive rising whine, and then it lifts graceful despite its size, climbing toward wherever it's going. Behind us, visible through the access road's curve, the departures sign glows gold. But we're not standing at departures anymore. "I spent 6 years watching people leave," I say quietly, pouring coffee for travelers heading elsewhere. It never occurred to me that I was waiting for someone to arrive. Werner sets down his coffee and turns to face me fully. "I spent 3 decades running my family's empire, making decisions for everyone else, wearing a crown I never wanted. I rode to this airport to decide if I'd accept an arranged marriage or finally choose my own life." He takes my hand. "I chose. And then I met someone who opened a door during a lockdown and asked nothing in return except honesty. I got more than honesty. So did I." His smile is soft, genuine. "I got ordinary. Coffee recommendations and fixed doors and a woman who reads people like I read threats. I got arrival after 30 years of departure." Another jet lifts behind us, its lights blinking red and white against the dark. "So what now?" I ask. "Now we see what we're building, slowly, together." Werner squeezes my hand gently. No crowns, no entourage. Just this coffee, dates, and dinner in normal restaurants, and learning what it means to choose each other every day. "That sounds good." "That sounds terrifying," he corrects. "I have no idea how to do ordinary. I'll probably mess it up. Then we'll mess it up together and figure it out as we go." We stand there at the fence as dawn begins its slow leak across the horizon, gray becoming pearl, darkness becoming light. More jets take off, their paths diverging toward every corner of the world. But Werner and I stay still, watching arrivals instead of departures, choosing the right size space between chaos and isolation. Behind us, the terminal glows. Ahead of us, everything is uncertain. And somehow, standing here with coffee and a man who asks before touching, I feel like I've finally stopped counting tills and started counting something that matters. Not departures. Arrivals. The kind where you choose the destination yourself. The kind that feels like home. 6 months later, Werner would help Micah build a Lego motorcycle. A year later, Shirley would enroll in Portland's culinary program commuting distance, not relocation. And 2 years later, at the same overlook where they'd watched jets lift into dawn, Werner would ask one more question requiring her explicit consent. But that night at the fence, with coffee cooling and sunrise breaking, they were just 2 people learning what it meant to arrive. That was enough. For both of them, it was finally enough. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.